What's up, everybody? Philly Sports Guy here. I am a social creator that brings that live experience to people who cannot be there. I sold cars, computer systems for Kmart. I was a restaurant manager, started to do masonry work. A buddy of mine, and he's like, we should start a chimney business. It's such a racket.
That's how I got Steven doing this. Same pitch, I think.
Dude, start a studio. It's a racket.
It's such a racket. When I wasn't doing real jobs, I would sleep out for tickets. You're not going to make $1 million working for somebody else. You got to do it on your own.
Roughly how many games do you get to a year?
Last year I did 120 some.
That's a lot of energy.
I came into this knowing that I was going to be the first ever professional fan. I was yelling nonstop at him. Drew Brees looked over and said, will somebody shut him up? People in Philadelphia work very hard, and they expect our sports teams to work as hard at their craft as we work at our craft. When I decide that I'm going to do this full time, sports will never end. And here comes COVID. Right. I'm like, all right, well, what do I do now?
This episode may contain explicit language not suitable for all audiences.
Welcome back to another episode of the NJCS Creators Show. I'm one of your hosts, John Bertino, alongside my co-host,
Steven Bacanza.
Oh my goodness. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that
I'm
again.
doing lots of that today. We're here with a very interesting, we're here with the character of sorts around here. And I actually should not even be doing your intro. I'm not even from this area.
No.
I don't even like Philly sports.
No,
so
Steven's
here we
from
are.
Long Island, San Diego. They don't have sports in San Diego.
I know, right?
They lost the Clippers. They didn't deserve them in the first place.
The Chargers.
No, the Clippers are originally from San Diego.
Oh, the Clippers
moved up to LA.
That's right, back in like the 60s.
So that's Steven flexing his sports acumen right out of the gate.
Out of the gate.
Actually, he's a big soccer guy, though.
I am.
Yeah.
I do like the Union, so go Union.
Go
Duke.
Union.
So go.
Me, on the other hand, I'm a solid sports fan. We brought in producer Jim for reinforcements, and Kristen, who's helping us with photo today, she's just the enemy in the Devils jersey. We'll put a camera on her later and shame her. Jamie, my man, the Philly sports guy. How do you pronounce your last name, Jamie?
Paye.
Paye.
Like yippee-i-yo, paye.
Paye, motherfucker.
Because the GL makes that yes sound in Italian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jamie, I don't think it's a stretch at all to say you are an icon around the area. Everybody knows who you are, maybe not by Jamie Paye, but by the Philly sports guy, the guy in the makeup, the guy on social media, the guy who took a picture with my kid at the stadium. Congratulations on all you've accomplished with the Philly sports guy persona. Today, we want to learn a little bit about the man behind the makeup, and that's why we brought you in. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And, an icon, I'm still trying to, I hear that often, and I still, I'm just a fan.
That's what's up, right? You're just being your most authentic self. We're going to dive into that. We want to start, though, from the beginning. We're really big on getting the story behind the creator. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, I assume from Philadelphia, and the journey that brought you to where you are today.
Well, I was born in Philadelphia. I moved out to Delco very early in my life. So I was born and raised, I kind of say, in Delco rather than, the 3 years I was in Overbrook, I don't really remember much of. I was born a sports fan, more by birthright in general. I lived with my mother and my grandmother growing up in Swarthmore. Mm-hmm. And you know that I'm from Swarthmore because I actually say the R rather than Swarthmore.
You threw me for a loop right out of the gate. I was like, isn't it Swarthmore? I guess he would know.
There's an R in there that nobody, I feel like I should have my pinky raised now. But I was on the wrong side of the tracks. I actually went to Ridley. I would have gone to Swarthmore High School had it remained open, but it did not. And my house was literally on the border of Swarthmore and Ridley and Strathaven. So I was on the Ridley side of things, which I think is the better side anyways. I lived with my grandmother and my mother growing up. So it was like a dual family household. Both my mother and my grandmother worked at the Spectrum. So from a very young age, I would remember like watching the Flyers because every time that there was a Flyers game, my mother and my grandmother would have to go to work. So at that time, my father worked in construction and was a concrete finisher. So when mom wasn't around, I was allowed to stay up a little bit later. So, and because dad would fall asleep on the couch and I would sit there and I'd watch the Flyers because ultimately I was trying to see my mom.
Of course.
Thinking that, she's working at the Flyers game. I'm going to be able to see her on TV.
You never know.
She's a waitress at the Ovations Club. It was originally called the Blue Line Club. So there was never a chance I was going to see her.
She wasn't on the Zamboni.
But you don't know that at 2 and 3 years old.
Yeah.
And back then, the Flyers were a great team. It was the Broad Street Bully years. And
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
so at 2 years old, they won the Stanley Cup. At 3 years old, they won the Stanley Cup. At 4 years old, they were going back to the Stanley Cup. So it was that young of an age where I learned how to become a fan. And at that time, you would get 3 newspapers. So it was the Inquirer, the Bulletin, and also like the Daily News. And I would steal the sports page even at that young of an age out of the newspapers and look at all the box scores and things like that. And I actually taught myself how to read and do math by looking at box scores and trying to figure that stuff out because I wanted to know what I was looking at.
It's amazing.
Before I would get yelled at by my grandfather, who wanted the newspaper back because he liked going to go watch the Phillies, but not baseball.
Mhm.
He was big at going to the track,
Right,
and they would have all the track information.
OTB,
Yeah,
and all
so,
the betting.
He knew all about that
He liked
stuff.
the
But he would
ponies.
always say he's going to go see the Phillies. The Phillies aren't playing today. The Phillies are playing. That's with 4 years old or 5 years old. I don't know any difference.
Old school way of talking about the track or the Phillies.
And so being around athletes and everything wasn't a big deal to me. Like I said, my mother would include me in their Christmas parties and things like that. So,
neat.
like, Mr. Snyder knew who I was by name, not because I was anybody special, but because I was always there. So I'd be running around the restaurant, sometimes when she was setting up while I'm waiting for my father to come pick me up, and Mr. Snyder would show up, and it was like you see him, and it would like snap to attention right away. It's like, hello, Mr. Snyder.
Pay your respects.
No running, Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Snyder.
Even at that age, you understood the magnitude of his role and his position.
100%.
Wow.
Like and there were a number of guys that you could see. Yeah, like when they would walk into a room that I have met. Because fast forward a little bit to when I was 14 years old, I started working at the Spectrum. And talking about 1986, 87, I was 14 years old, getting to go to every Flyers game now. And access was so different back then when you could just, after I got done work, I would walk down the hallway and go stand at where the Zamboni would go in and out. And literally, I would be in my bow tie and my tuxedo shirt and, just coming from work and watch the entire game until somebody would come pick me up or, my mother got off work. So it was like I was always around the players. And so it was never a real big deal to me. I never got starstruck by any athlete because I could always touch them. You know what I mean?
It was
always right there.
It was right
Correct.
there. Yeah,
It's like you were groomed for this, though.
A
in
little
way,
bit.
I mean,
right?
out of the womb, and here we are.
It's funny how things come back. It's like I've got so many stories in my youth that are like funny, but so different than how sports are today. It's such a difference where, like I said, you could get access. One of the greatest stories I love to tell is
Please.
At 7 years old, it is the 1980 Phillies. My mother is working at the vet at the Grand Slam Room is what it was called. And it was a restaurant that you could watch Phillies in the outfield. And the bartender gets set up early, and I'm there waiting for my father to get done work. He's building the Blue Route at the time. So it's like he's coming late. He doesn't get done until about 4:00 or so. And so the bartender's like, I'm going to go take him down to the dugout. Now, just thinking about that alone,
Right.
A bartender who is working up at the Grand Slam room is going to have access to get into the dugout
Right.
of the Phillies.
Yeah.
And he takes me to the dugout. And we're talking that's Mike Schmidt. Like Mike Schmidt was like my hero growing up. Pete Rose, like Larry Boa, like all of those guys, all right there. And I'll never forget. I'm holding this guy's hand. I can't even tell you who that bartender was. I can kind of picture his face, but I have no idea what his name was or anything like that. And I'm holding this guy's hand. It's 7 years old. And I'm looking up and he goes, and here is the bull, Greg Lazinski. And I'm looking up at him and Greg looks down at me and he goes, I eat little kids for breakfast. Puts his hand on my face, pushes me out of the way and walks past.
Wow.
Now I'm sitting there shaking because I'm thinking this guy's going to eat me.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
I don't know any better, really. It's like, but it's just a moment that just stuck in my brain forever. It's like
called trauma, Jamie. It's called
yeah,
trauma.
tell me
I was
about
gonna say that a positive moment or a negative one?
It's funny. I told him that story maybe about 5 years ago. And the bull is great. He is not the best people's person, in
Sure,
general.
no, I mean,
And if it wasn't for his wife, he probably wouldn't talk to anybody at all, but his wife is very
Complete
friendly
opposite,
with
yeah.
everybody. So I told him his story on video and he just looked at me. He goes, you must have been small. And I'm like, there was no better answer to get from him. Like that was just amazing.
That was so on brand.
Exactly.
It was a very
So
on
it's
brand
just-
moment.
It's so amazing, like some of the things that I have been through, and I just always thought was normal. So fast forward some more. I mean, I'm one of those guys who didn't know what he wanted to be when he grew up. I knew I didn't want to go to college, so right out of high school, I went into the Navy. But before that, between my junior and senior year, I went backpacking through Europe.
Good for you.
So I had so much money from working because I was making $7.50 an hour plus tips at the Spectrum, so it was like I was making bank. And my mother's like, hey, you could buy a car or you could backpack through Europe if you want to. And I'm like, well, let's go through Europe.
Yeah.
So I can get a car at any time.
We might have to revisit the Europe thing at the end here. Now you and Steven have a connection because we got
Finally.
Steven, our resident Italian citizen in the room. So hold that thought, Pecans. I know you're chomping,
I'm a paisan
chomping
too,
at the
so.
bit.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
all of
yeah.
us. Okay, so you're backpacking through Europe. You're not sure what you want to do. My notes say that you found yourself into masonry. Is that right?
So that's much further down the line.
Right.
Obviously, like I got out of the service.
And thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. I installed computer systems for Kmart for a little while.
Kmart.
Yeah, it's
Kmart for the red tag sale, right?
exactly.
What was that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Blue light
The
specials.
blue light special at Kmart.
So,
Wow.
and you get to see a slice of America when you go traveling through Kmart's.
No
No
doubt.
shit.
Very interesting. I sold cars, but my father, like I said, I worked with my mother. I also did work with my father when I was young, and he had me pushing wheelbarrows of concrete. And I was like, I want to go
You were
work with
working.
mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's definitely like you move wheelbarrows of concrete. That sucks,
Right.
But I, learned masonry and was kind of good at it. And, I ultimately, I was selling cars, and I had a buddy of mine who was a roommate, and he's like, hey, listen, we should start a chimney sweep business. It's such a racket. Like that was his pitch to me.
That was his pitch.
As
One
I would,
slide at the racket.
literally, like we
That's
would.
how I got Steven doing this. Same pitch, I think.
Dude, start a studio at the racket.
It's such
Easy.
a racket.
It's easy.
And we would be sit there, like I'd come home from work, and we would be playing Risk
I
on
fucking love Risk.
a not a Sega Genesis at that time, probably a PlayStation,
Mm.
and literally be playing Risk nonstop against each other. It was just world domination. And we would talk about doing this. And then the used car manager position, I was one of the best salespersons on the floor. And the used car manager came up and I said, listen, I want you to interview me for the job. I want to see what is entailed with going to be a used car manager. And they didn't talk to me at all about it. They just hired somebody. And I took that as a real slap in the face. I'm like, I think I just deserved the conversation. And I came home and I says, you know what? We'll start this chimney business. And
good for you.
It was National Fireplace and Chimney, NFC Services. Was because we're thinking NFC. Like I was... Again, I wanted to entitle football into it. So I was like,
I was wondering if that was a coincidence.
It was not a coincidence. I'm usually really good with names. And so I learned the chimney industry and started to do masonry work. And having businesses with partners is like assholes. There should be only one.
Oh, yeah, it sucks.
Worse.
Absolutely the worst. So bad.
Ugh.
I'm trying to figure out how I deal with it.
Oh,
But,
Lord.
I
And,
mentioned therapy earlier. Sorry, go ahead. Trauma.
So we had some
Back
so
to
we
back.
had some challenges, and so I started a chimney company for another existing masonry company.
Please tell me it's AFC.
No,
American.
this was Jamison Masonry at the time up in Orland, Pennsylvania, and they didn't have a chimney business. And I remember going on Craigslist, and I'm like, this literally it was like, hey, we're looking for somebody to come in and just start a chimney business. Like we don't know anything about it. We have an existing masonry business. You're going to get everything that you need to do this, but this is what you got to do. And I literally was like, I didn't even give him a resume. I was like, I'm the guy for this job. You want me? And they hired me. And
Nice.
next thing you know, it's like I, started a chimney business for them and worked for there for about 5-6 years. And, that gentleman who owned that business was probably one of the best businessmen I've ever met. I learned a lot from him, but also learned how you can cut your nose off to spite your face. And I learned that really everybody's replaceable in the process too, but it was just like, and the story I love to tell about him is that, you ever heard of a boogie board?
Sure.
He didn't invent the boogie board, but he's the reason why you know it as a boogie board.
Blew up, huh?
He was the one who did the marketing for the boogie board. And that's
That's
why
the claim.
that's
fame.
why
That's a good
they're
one.
all called boogie boards now. It's like it's funny. It's
like
funny how
it's
that
like
is.
Kleenex, right? Like it's one of those things to where it doesn't. Any brand is still a boogie board.
That's right.
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 It was a
Under
body
Armour has
board,
one,
wasn't it?
Yeah,
Body
it's
board?
all it is. It's just
Same
a
thing.
board that you would. It's a piece of styrofoam covered by a little bit of fabric that you ride in the ocean.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what
tempted
that
to say they used to call them body boards, and at some point, to your point, it became
Boogie board. Like in the 90s, it became like when we were growing up, it was like I remember boogie boards being a thing.
Yeah,
Right.
Go
Well, it
boogie
was in the
boarding.
80s.
Yeah, makes sense.
And
Makes
so
sense.
I learned a lot from him. But
About marketing.
about
business.
marketing, business. So the marketing part was always easy for me. Like I was a restaurant manager. I actually, when I did go back to college for a little while, I went for hotel restaurant management, and I managed Sizzlers,
Sizzle.
Oh boy, I remember those. Yeah.
Bennigan's,
Bennigan.
and then ultimately the Chart House down in Philly for a
House,
little
yeah.
while. And it was like I was always big on how we can get people in the door. And when I wasn't doing real jobs, the other jobs I was doing was like I would sleep out for tickets, and I would bring
Sleep out for tickets.
You mean
What
to
does that
resell
mean?
them? You mean?
yeah, exactly.
Like
So-
you would sleep on the streets, wait
or
for
tickets at Ticketmaster. Originally, you were only able to get tickets at Ticketmaster.
Right.
So I would go sit there
Get your spot in line
and get my
ahead
spot in
of
line,
time.
bring in other guys.
Sit
what I
there
mean?
with you.
Well, no. Only one person's got to hold the line. So I'd be the one that would spend the night
Yeah.
typically and make sure that we have our spot in line, because people would wait in line for like 3 days at a time. And then you bring in your people, and you got like 8 or 9 people, and then you put them, you try to stagger them out like every 8 to 10 people, because there would be 4 lines, and it's like the first 10, the first, second 10, third 10, fourth 10. So you're hoping that you get maybe in that first grouping and such like that, so you can buy as many tickets as you can, and then you would sell them to the scalpers.
How many would you usually buy?
60 to 80
60
tickets.
to 80 tickets at a time.
Oh, wow,
Well,
they didn't have a
no. You could only buy 8.
You can only buy 8.
But I would have 10 guys.
between your crew.
Absolutely. You'd bring them down, and like you pay them like $5.
I think
an
that's
hour,
the
and
definition of a racket.
that was absolutely a racket.
So, Jamie, I would jump in here, right? So I want to get to the point where you transition into what you're currently doing. But something that jumps out to me from what you've told us so far is how these various jobs you've had probably had a huge impact in ultimately serving you to what you're doing today. Universe always seems to work like that, right?
100%.
So you're doing restaurant business, so you had to get good with people and experiences. You grew up literally from day one with a great appreciation for the game, fandom, and you further emphasize that with your ticket racket.
Ticket
right?
rackets.
And then, of course, any manual labor in between, which taught you the value of hard work. Right. So I'd have to imagine a lot of that's kind of that cocktail that helped get you to where you are. But what actually was that catalyst where this became a thing?
So we are in 2016. At this point, I have my own masonry business called United States Masonry and Chimney, USMC. Again,
another.
You know what? I think I still have the letter that I received from the United States government telling me you are not allowed to use the letters USMC in a string. So I had to put an ampersand. So it was USMNC. So not to get in trouble, because when the government sends you a letter, it's actually a really nice letter saying, hey, we appreciate the fact that you are using these letters, but do not do it. We will have to.
There is no next letter.
There is no. This is your cease and desist letter. Please. Thank you.
Don't fuck up again.
I was like, okay. It's so funny to get that letter too. It's like, wow, I'm being paid attention to. So, and I am doing well in the business, but I am the one doing a lot of the work, and I couldn't grow the business the way I wanted to. And every time I would find one of like a great mason or something like that, I would lose them, even though I was paying them really well. I'd lose them to better paying jobs. Like I didn't even realize that Amtrak hired masons, like had masons on staff, and so like SEPTA, Amtrak, or they'd start their own business because. It's just like it's hard to keep somebody who you're not going to make $1 million working for somebody else. You got to do it on your own. So
we got that,
and that's I would hire good guys, but that's ultimately lose them. And I started doing work at a production studio, and that studio kind of knew that I would get painted up for Eagles games. Now I've been getting painted up.
So you were painting yourself already in 2016?
I've been painting myself up for like 25 years. First time
at that point already.
Correct. So I had
your
been,
season ticket holder?
20 years. No, never. I've never owned season tickets.
Okay,
so it's around 2000 you started painting yourself.
2001 to be exact.
Do you know the day?
It was the San Francisco game against the Eagles. I would do it for away games, and it was the Eagles versus San Francisco. I know that they had a 99-yard drive that beat us. It was like 14-7. We would have, had we won that game, we would have won the NFC East that day. But Terrell Owens was on the 49ers, and literally he destroyed us in the second half, and we wound up losing that game 14-7.
Producer Jim, you know that game, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Producer Jim, what was the date of that game?
Yeah. What was the final score, Producer Jim?
14-7, I think it was.
See, it's a real sports fan when it's a game from 25 years ago and they remember the score.
It was an away game, it was cold that day.
Well, there's so many funny stories that go along with that. Like I wanted to make a sign, and I didn't have a marker or paint or anything to do it, but I had shoe polish. And we made a sign. We took the sheet off of the bed and did it and made a sign with shoe polish on the rug. The shoe polish went through the rug, through to the rug. And they charged us a fee for that. Charged my brother a fee, actually. He's like, yeah, they charged us a fee for cleaning that room because I'm like, no, they didn't see it. He's like, oh no, they sent a picture of what it looked like backwards.
Wow. What did you write in the sign?
Last week, tuna, because we had just beaten Purcell.
The big tuna,
something like that. It was like something to do with like NFC East champs. You know what I mean? It's like last week tuna, this week Niner or whatever, NFC East champs. Never got to see the sign. That sign, we were on the very top row, and we kind of like hid the sign underneath, like behind the seats, so that we could like go get food and whatever. They grabbed that sign and threw it over there.
Did they?
I need to clarify something because you mentioned away games. I had read that was your pattern. So were you traveling all over the country to go to these games?
Not every away game.
Okay,
So I would
but a
do
lot.
I would do one a year.
Okay.
And it was me and my brother that started it, and then we started to include people. So now it's like we have. I think this year our group is like 8.
You're still doing it?
Still do one game a year that they join me. However, I go to every game now. I don't miss an Eagles game at all. The last Eagles game I missed was Christmas Eve, Dallas game a couple years ago.
Producer Jim, what was the final score of that game?
I think we got crushed that game, actually.
That
but,
sounds familiar, actually. All right, so you're going to the away games, you're getting painted up, you're getting fines from hotels because you're making signs.
Oh, that's rock star right there.
So so you got the masonry business, hard to scale it. What happens?
So I'm in there doing work with the production studio.
Oh,
and
right.
the studio knows that I get painted up, and I'm also something weird happens at a bar that I'm playing softball for. They would give me my own television to watch games at, and literally I wasn't getting painted up to watch those games, but like I'm standing there and I would yell at the television, and they were getting people coming in to watch me watch the game. Because I would yell at the television like second level stuff. Like how is it that he's not in on this play? If he's not in there, that means they're running this ball. That means the defense knows this. If I know this, the defense knows this. This play's going to get stopped and fail, and it would fail. And it would literally, those people in the bar would then call WIP, and talk about what it is that I saw at the game, acting like they saw it.
Nice.
Which I didn't care because I wasn't a guy who called into radio shows. It wasn't my thing. I don't want somebody else to control the narrative of what I'm saying. So tough, good, whatever. Somebody broke the television, and I'm like,
somebody. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't me.
A rock,
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan where I have to bust up a television. No, there was a situation that occurred in the bar sometime that week, and they broke the television. And this would be where I go to watch my games, and now there's no television, and they say they're not going to replace it. And I'm like, uh-oh, I got to go find another place to go watch the games.
No doubt.
So I go to my local bar, which I don't typically like to do because it was like, it's too close to home. I don't want to be that guy because I know how I am watching games. I'm not.
But you are that guy.
Well, So
He's
it
incognito.
changes. It kind of changes. It changed and evolved a little bit. I was an asshole watching a game. To watch a game with me, I was an asshole because I'm not paying attention to anybody else around me. I'm yelling at the television. I am involved as if I'm there.
Yeah, you're fully engulfed.
The first game I'm watching there, they score a touchdown, and I do the fight song, and then
By yourself?
by myself at the bar. And there's like 8 other people at the bar, and then they score a touchdown and they're doing the fight song right after the touchdown. I'm like, no. We wait to the extra point. Listen, if you want me to come watch games here, we do things the way I say it. And then it was at that moment, they're like, well, if you're going to take over control of this, you got to get painted up. I says, listen, if the Eagles make it to the playoffs, I'll get painted up. So here it is. Eagles make it to the playoffs.
I gotta stop you because I just gotta make sure I heard that right. So you're at this bar, 8 people. You're holding down the fort. You are the entertainment. You're yelling at the TV. You're dictating when the song can or can't be sang.
Correct.
And they said, "All right, here's the deal, bro. If you're gonna dictate the room and command the ship here, you gotta paint your face."
But you have to, because they knew I would paint my face
Right.
for away games. But they're like, no, you got to paint your face here. I'm like, I'm not going to do it for a home game. But if they make it to the playoffs, I'll get painted up.
Okay, all right.
And they knew because now we're in the 2018 season. We just won the Super Bowl, and for the Super Bowl, I had gotten painted up and went to like all the bars. It was just like I couldn't go to the game, but I got painted up for that. So they
Were you
saw-
the Philly sports guy at that point?
Not yet.
You were just Jamie.
I was just Jamie.
You were just batshit crazy Jamie. who
Painted up, watching the Super Bowl.
Fair enough.
Hell yeah.
So now we're in 2018 and we're in the playoffs and we're playing Chicago. I am literally at the bar, painted up, and we're watching. And the guy standing next to me, he's like, Cody Parkey, he never makes a kick that matters. And I started repeating that all game. I'm like, that's right. It never makes a kick that matters. Don't, that's the double doink.
Mhm.
So the bar's like, you got to come back next week. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to the game. So I go to the Saints game, but I'm working all week long in the production studio. And they're like, hey, listen, this is what you should do. I never had worn the shoulder pads up to that point. So like, they got me the shoulder pads and, we're like, you're going to go and do this right. We got some football pants and I had to paint the stripe on it to make it look like the Eagles because it wasn't Eagles pants. And like, all right, I go to the game. I'm literally there 3 hours early and just hype as all hype could be. Like I own that whole stadium because there ain't nobody in there. Except me, 3 hours early, and sitting there watching them come out for like early workouts and things like that.
Are you yelling at him or you're not?
I'm like excited and everything like it. But I have a friend of mine through the production studio that has met up with me. She was able to get me in, but not able to get me on the field. So and she had Jordan Mailata living with her for before he was even a thing.
Yeah.
Long story short, I'm all over the internet. John Clark decides to make a quick video of me. And he knows that I'm going nuts all game long, like all day long before this. And I do an Eagles chant. He's like, give me more. So I'm like, all right, we own this. This is our house today. Go Birds, and that goes viral because Barstool Sports says I'm the most sophisticated man in Philadelphia. And
It's just so much packaged into that couple word sentence.
Meanwhile, you look like the Legion of Doom.
And then the second thing that happens is like I am doing I always do like this for fourth down. Like I do the same call that the referee does. That means fourth down. And somebody from Bleacher Report took a picture. And the way that the picture looked and the way that they framed that picture, it almost looked like I was elbowing a Saints fan.
Nice.
The Saints fan,
Nice.
like before the game's even over, shows me his phone. He goes, look, we're famous. Because they're over. And so ultimately,
Wow.
I wound up getting like 10 to 12 million views that game, that one game.
On
specifically.
where?
Yeah.
On all the different, but not me personally.
But you don't have a channel at this. You're not on social media.
No, I have
You're on MySpace.
just Facebook at the time. I don't even think I have an Instagram.
Got it. Okay.
And I know that the kid comes up to me, Saints fan, and he's like, dude, you're viral. I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like viral.
Watch
Like
your
I'm
mouth.
not sick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I find out. So I go back. The other cool thing about that is that at the bar, they because I wasn't there, they got a fat head of my face and put me on a stick, my
That's
face on
great.
a stick, and had me facing the television, my television. And then, during the
wow,
commercials, they
yeah.
would turn me around and stuff like that. And when they showed me on television, the bar erupted. Like, it was just an amazing thing for them. It was just like, oh, wow,
That's our
like,
guy.
That's
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
He's there. He's representing.
And what's the name of the bar?
It was called the Burgundy. The Burgundy Lounge in Ridley Park. It's
Is
no longer in existence.
Oh,
Ah,
no.
bummer.
Yeah, so
You didn't get a chance to buy it?
they wanted way too much money. Yeah, so
Okay.
plus, I won't get into that part. Like, I wound up moving to the bar across the street.
Oh, okay.
Dolan's bar.
Wow.
So did everybody else that was
Yeah,
at the
you
Burgundy.
changed teams within the conference, it sounds like.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. It was like-
Okay.
Division. I'm such a bad sports guy.
Damn it, John.
I even fucked up the joke. Go ahead, Jamie.
either way.
So
I understood what
who
you
threw
meant.
out the first pitch of that game? I'm kidding.
How many goals?
So, but it was Alshon Jeffrey missed the ball. The ball went through his hands, which is why we lost.
I do
And,
remember.
on a play that I felt like they should have gone to the 2-minute warning. Again, it was like one of those situations. But I will tell you, first off, like, that stadium can get very, very loud, but it also can get very, very quiet when they're on offense. And that first play where he threw in that game was an interception. And I take full responsibility. I feel like I was
Yes.
the one
Wow.
who did. I was yelling nonstop at him. Like at one point, Drew Brees looked over and said, "Will somebody shut him up?" Like, you could
Really?
kind of tell, like, somebody shut him up.
Because you've taken it to 11 at this point.
I'm
You're
like
Spinal Tap.
15. I was like
Fuck.
15. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was going nuts that entire game. Of course, we lost, and I was like, all right, well, whatever.
Anybody say anything to you?
They did. I tell you, everybody hated me being there until they didn't. Once they won, everybody's coming up and taking pictures.
So you go viral. You find out what that means.
I go back to the production studio, and they want me to do a commercial. I come in, and I'm all done up, and it, like, at that time, it's like every time I would put on my stuff, it would be like, okay, this is like, I'm like, it would be a different person. And they're like, wow, your energy is amazing. You're like the savior of Philadelphia sports. You're like the Philly sports guy.
Mm.
You should see if that name's available.
That was the moment.
And Philly sports guy was taken. Philly sports guys was a thing. It was a show at one point. But the Philly sports guy was not.
Mm.
And they says, just grab him. Start grabbing those names. So I did it on Facebook, Instagram,
GoDaddy.
on GoDaddy, but .com was taken.
Mm.
So I had to do .net.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we go teach you how to do social media. I'm like, all right, well, I'll try.
Who's away? The production studio?
The production studio.
Nice.
And really all they taught me was hashtags. Like, hey,
Mm.
start getting all the hashtags
Yeah.
you can and do this, and you're going to have to go to the draft. I'm like, I don't want to go to the draft. Like, it's, I barely made it down to the draft when it was in Philly. I could care less about the draft. Why would I need to go to this thing? And they're like, you need to go. And it was in Nashville. My first time ever going to Nashville. Such an amazing experience. And
Cool place.
I am one of those guys that I need to get the lay of the land. I want to know what's going on. So I go down there 2 days early. I find out where all the nooks and crannies are that I'm going to be able to try to sneak in to get wherever I can. I wind up getting through. I'm like, hey, I got an email. I got to come over here. I wind up try to get in on the stage. And I go to the Eagles guy, and he's like, oh, great. You're my first super fan. What's your name? I'm like, Jamie Paye. They're like, you're not on my list. But I'm going to put you over here. We're going to get you on stage. I'm like, all right. One of the guys the night before got way too wasted. They wouldn't let him back on the stage again. So I wind up taking his spot, which is cool for me. Now, I'm up there on stage with all the other super fans, and I own the place now. Now it's like I'm going and taking pictures with
And you're painted
everybody.
up, of
And
course,
you're in the
right?
full.
I'm in the full garb,
regalia,
full
yeah.
garb. So I look normal amongst them, and he doesn't know who I am, so he's getting nervous. The guy who allow me to get up on stage. But all I'm doing is taking pictures for everybody and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm doing my thing. The energy was so amazing for me. And like I was doing interviews with these guys and stuff like that. It was, I came home with so much content thinking, oh, yeah, this is great. We'll be able to get this out there. And all of a sudden I'm going to have 1 million followers and make all this money and stuff like that. Nobody saw a damn thing, you know?
Okay, that's interesting, right? So what you were bringing in the real world environments isn't necessarily translating on social yet, and you're
Correct.
still not sure how to work the channels other than hashtags.
Correct.
Okay, so what'd you do about it?
So you fight through it. And I'm starting to make a little bit of headway. I'm starting to get more views and things like that. And I'm like, you know what? I closed down the masonry company. I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. This is I'm not doing what's happening here. My business acumen is not great. You know, I'm knowing this now. Now I'm like, all right, I'm failing at this business. There's something that's definitely wrong because I should be making a lot more money. I should have this a much further along than I am. So I'm going to stop this and become the Philly sports guy full time.
2019?
This is 2019.
Wow.
At the time, my mother, who was in the hospital for COPD and emphysema, and the doctor just gave her 6 months to live. And I remember going to see her in the hospital. And my mother and I's relationship was always a little on the contentious side. You know, she's a Gemini, I'm a Libra. So she's hard-headed, I'm stubborn, and that's the way it was. It was always like this.
Plus, you're both from Philly.
Exactly. So we would fight all the time, and ultimately, like we had a heart-to-heart. We kind of hashed out all our stuff. You're like, hey, listen, but she's like, she saw me on television after this game, and she's like, you're not too famous for your mom now, right? And I'm like, no, Mom, I'm not. And she's like, and I'm telling her that I'm thinking about closing the business and becoming this Philly sports guy. And she's like, if you want to do this and you want to make this happen, do it. There are so many different things. My mother was probably one of the largest influences in my life because she worked a full-time job. She was the shop steward at the place where I was a busboy and waiter, and then eventually backstage manager. She was like the shop steward there for the union. She owned an ice cream parlor. She went to college late in life full-time, and then wound up breaking her leg going into work one day, and then did it all from a wheelchair.
Wow.
And then after that, because she had become so adept at a wheelchair and she wasn't going to let that stop her moving, she started a travel company for people who have hardships, like whether they're in a wheelchair or whether they are mentally or physically disabled.
Wow.
And started a whole that and would go take them on trips. So she was traveling around the world doing all this stuff. So a lot of that stuff kind of came from her. And, she's like, if you're going to do this, do it. We're only above the grass for so long, and, ultimately it's like all the regret that I have right now, like I don't wish that on you.
Yeah.
Go do this. And then she's like, when you were 10 years old, you asked me one time, why is it that people don't get painted up for hockey games or baseball games or whatever? Why is it only football? I said, I asked you that? She says, yeah. I says, well, what did you say? He goes, I don't know. Go outside and fucking play. Which was a very big Italian response.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
But the fact that
question.
she kind of told me that was like, maybe this was
That's
my
it.
calling.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what it
moment,
is.
man.
3 weeks later, she was passed on. It was a little tough moment at the time, but it just that resonated. And also that same time, I got Gary Vee in my ear. Like he's the one that just happened. Like a lot of people say it, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. he just happened to be the one saying it in my ear at that time. Like,
He's
I'm
not
just
quiet
watching.
about that.
No, and he was real like, and I was just watching, and some of this stuff was like so full of shit. Like,
Yeah.
you are not going to carry a piece of furniture on the bus that you get for free and sell it for $10. Get the frig out of here. Like, let's stop. Let's stop with the
His
bullshit.
yard sale stuff.
Yeah,
sure.
but I understood the hustle part. Like, I got the meaning out of it. It was just so between that and just kind of going off of my mother, it was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do.
Well, let me ask you, to the degree you're comfortable sharing, were you in a position financially with the Philly sports guy where that was a relatively comfortable move, or was it a really difficult decision to make financially?
So it was. I had some money saved up. You know what I mean? It was like a business, and I looked at this like a business. Like, okay, this is how this is going to work, and ultimately, I have to start to make money doing this, which means that I got to do appearances and start doing all this stuff.
Charging.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
yourself.
You have to figure out ways to be able to make money.
Right.
Well, and let me clarify. This is super relevant to a lot of our listeners who are like, okay, trying to do this thing. I've built somewhat of a following, but just cutting that cord from the 9 to 5 or whatever they're doing and transitioning to full-time is so difficult.
Way difficult.
And you were ready. And you're in your 40s at this point.
This is 47, 48 years old.
Okay.
At this point. And I have some money saved up, but this is expensive. And this also didn't have a manual.
No.
I came into this knowing that I was going to try to be the first ever professional fan. And that's not simple. Like, and not only that, it's like, I think about like, well, where else could this possibly work? And there's not many places that it could work.
Right.
Philadelphia is, because of the personality of the city as a whole, is one of the only reasons why this works at all.
Mhm.
Like, if I was in San Diego,
No.
I can't do it. You know what I mean?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, same thing with like LA. Same thing with like New York.
Yeah, New
There's
York couldn't work because there's too many different teams.
too many
and
different
this-
teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Chicago. I know they
Maybe
got two
Boston.
well, Boston's one, but
Boston
Boston's
and Philadelphia
a
are
little
very
too
similar to me.
little too white collar in Boston.
I
You know
don't
what I mean?
You
So
should you should meet my wife.
Yeah, you gotta be like. I felt like you need to be very like. This is a blue collar town.
Yeah, and they're gonna get behind kind of just like Joe Anybody, if I could, Joe Anybody fan, and be like, "Fuck yeah, man!"
No,
like,
they ain't.
Well, no. You're hardcore, but that's what I mean. Like, just sheer fandom is all they want to see. Like, anybody in Philly will get behind that. Like, this is a
Yes.
hardcore fan, and so it doesn't matter anything else about you. All that matters is that you are a hardcore fan, and they're like,
We share the
we rally
ideology.
around that. We
Yeah.
share that. That's what I mean.
Well, I think I don't even think it's that in
Please.
depth. I think it's much less than that. I
Please.
feel like these guys, like people in Philadelphia, work very hard for a living, and they get, they put their heart on their sleeve for our sports teams, and they expect our sports teams to work as hard at their craft as we work at our craft. And that's why I feel like out of all of like the teams that didn't win anything at all, Buddy Ryan is still revered in this town, mostly because he got his guys to work really, really hard.
Mhm.
And that resonates with Philadelphia. So you working and putting in the work and putting in the time and putting in the energy, even if it works out as a result that is not what we want, we don't win, we are still accepting of that because we could tell when you're not putting in the work. And when that's going on and you're not doing everything you can to win the championship or to just win, we're gonna let you hear it, and we're gonna be very vocal about it. And I think that personality is not easy to replicate.
It takes a lot of energy, commitment, and motivation. And before we connected on to do this interview, I was just like anybody else, seeing you at the stadium, and you always bring that incredibly high energy with you, or at least in the appearances, the moments I've had with you. It takes a lot to do that for consecutive hours, hundreds of games a year, right? Like, roughly how many games do you get to a year?
I think last year I did 120 some.
That's a
That's a lot, man.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
energy.
You know, and that's just the games.
The
that
expectation
I
now
went
people
to.
that have of you, I'm sure that's
Right.
tolling. Like you need to be on when you're there.
Well, yes, yeah,
That's a lot.
It is a lot, and I will. It wasn't immediately accepted. It was something that had to get thought through, you know. And then right when I decide that I'm going to do this full time, I'm like, hey, sports will never end. And then here comes COVID.
Mm.